How's it going? You are welcome to the very first Aidlink Town Hall webinar. My name is Donald Scannell, and it's my pleasure to be your host tonight. We have the disadvantage of not being able to see you guys. That is a disadvantage, definitely. You have the disadvantage of being able to see us as well, so it cuts both ways. And it's great to see the participant numbers ramping up now that the doors are open. You've been queuing outside in the cold to get in, and the numbers are just, this is a great turnout. Wow, this is brilliant. This is really cool. Yes, the numbers come up every second. This is fantastic. We have a jam-packed event tonight, and you're going to hear all about the amazing work that Aidlink is doing for this first ever town hall. And I think this town hall is one of the best things that can happen out of COVID, because we're all getting to go to an event that we wouldn't otherwise perhaps go out in the cold to do. And maybe this will stay an annual event even this time next year when the world is back to normal. There's a little bit of housekeeping. If you notice down the bottom right hand corner of your Zoom screen, there's a button that says Q&A. So if you click on that, you'll be able to submit questions, and we'll be doing questions at the end. In about 30 minutes time, we'll have a question section. So ask your questions, and even if you can't stay till the end and you have a question, pop your question in there, and this will be recorded and you'll be able to watch it later. So we do encourage your questions. So we have some very fine and distinguished speakers for you tonight. We have John Lynch, the Aidlink chairperson. He's in the bottom left of my screen. I don't know if you're seeing the same thing. We have Anne Cleary, Aidlink CEO and Wonder Person. She's in the top left. And we have Paris Mutian, Program Manager of Girl Child Network, live from Kenya. They're 3 hours ahead. It's 10:30, well past Paris's bedtime, but she has stayed up for us specially tonight. And also we've got Mundy playing some music later. He's been a long-term and a long-time Aidlink supporter, and he's going to play some music. But to kick things off, I will hand over to John.
Thanks very much, Donald. And good evening, everyone. Many thanks to those joining us tonight and to those who put a lot of work into bringing us together. My name is John Lynch, and I'm speaking as chair of Aidlink, an important Irish charity which for the last 38 years has been using a unique partnership model to build communities and deliver long-lasting change. I hope you enjoyed the entertainment provided by our fantastic musician, Mundy, and that we can bring you up to date on the work that Aidlink has been doing to educate, empower, and enable communities to bring sustainable change. We are particularly delighted tonight to be joined by our Kenyan colleagues, Paris and Mercy, who will tell us firsthand about some of the important work they are doing in partnership with Aidlink. This year has been difficult for everyone. The whole world has been challenged by COVID-19 and the destruction of lives and livelihoods that it's left in its wake. And you won't be surprised to learn that it's challenged Aidlink as well as the communities we serve in Africa. As with most charities, raising the funds required to meet our expenses has been almost impossible this year, leaving us with a shortfall which we have to address urgently. We depend on our Aidlink community to support us and would ask that you help, if you can, particularly now. As well as helping with donations and fundraising, you can also become an Aidlink champion and help us get the word out about what Aidlink does and the difference we make. If you want to be an Aidlink champion, please contact Anne or myself. For those who've already stepped forward to help, like the Bank of Ireland staff, Electric Aid, the parents in Loretto Beaufort School, and those who did the Rock Run, you have our sincere gratitude. Your generosity in our hour of need is a lifeline, but we need further generosity. It's also very sad that over 100 Irish school children weren't able to make their immersion trip to Africa this year, a trip that's been very important in the lives of many of those who traveled in previous years, and a transformational experience for some that will remain with them for the rest of their lives. We're also missing the Aidlink for Turkana concert with the brilliant musicians and choirs, which has been a magical evening over the last 3 years. But it's not all doom and gloom. Several things this year have demonstrated the value of the Aidlink model, which is different to other organizations. Aidlink uses a strong equal partnership model, where we combine our knowledge and experience with our partners' local knowledge and experience, and the combination always far exceeds the sum of the parts. We apply this partnership model to the challenges faced by the world's most marginalized communities, so we can educate, empower, and enable them to build their communities. I must commend our principal partner, Girl Child Network, represented tonight by Paris and Mercy, who won the 2020 UNESCO Prize for Girls and Women's Education, an incredible achievement. You'll hear from them later. The impact of COVID on African communities has been different to our experience in Ireland, but no less traumatic, despite lower COVID cases. I'm pleased to tell you our programs were able to pivot when the needs of the community changed with COVID-19, including things like long school closures. This agility means our resources can be used to maximize their impact on the community's key needs, and Anne will tell you about this. In conclusion, if COVID-19 has taught us any lessons, it's reminded us that there is no us and them. As humans, there is only us, one human community that relies on each other. I'm very grateful for all your support and for joining us tonight, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. I'll hand back now to Donal.
That was brilliant, John. Thank you very much. And a reminder that we would have just had Aidlink in Turkana last weekend had all this COVID thing not happened, and we do look forward to getting back to it. And I do look forward to hearing more from Anne now about Aidlink's resilience in this crazy year the world is having. Over to you now, Anne.
Thanks very much, Donal. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here tonight. Here we are on the International Day of Human Rights, and we thought it was a very timely date for us to come together. We really appreciate you being with us. Like John has said, it's been an extraordinary year, and a year like no other. And the global nature of this pandemic has, I suppose, shook us all to the core. And the impact of school closures, of families being separated, of work being interrupted and broken has been shared across the world. I think when I reflect on this year a little bit, being an international development worker, I suppose one of the things that has struck me most is that global nature. In my 30 years in doing this work, I've often been focused on the other place and not so much at home. But in this last year, all of us have been concerned about our own families, our own communities, our own friends. But as John has said, you know, here we are, this is now one world, and it's all, this pandemic has impacted on all of us greatly. I hope that maybe one of the learnings that will come out of it is a sense of solidarity, because now we do have a sense of a shared experience. Well, it's been really difficult in Ireland, and I think none of us would doubt that in any fashion. And there have been phenomenal challenges for the communities that we work with in the countries that we work. Paris will tell you more, but you know, Aidlink for the last number of years has been working very much with nomadic pastoralist communities, the Maasai in Kajiado, the Turkana in Turkana, northern Kenya, and the Karamojong in Uganda. These are communities that already have particular challenges, extreme poverty, communities who don't have access to running water, often walking 6 to 12 kilometers a day for water, no electricity, no connectivity to the internet. So the school closures in Kenya and Uganda had a stunningly negative impact on the communities, with no alternatives really on offer for the children that we work with. And of course, we have to talk tonight about what is being referred to now as the silent pandemic and gender-based violence. I think that it would be true to say that in Kenya and Uganda, it is really not so silent. Lockdown poverty as a result of restrictions imposed by government to contain the virus have forced many desperate families to marry off their underage daughters to ease the burden of family expenses. And as a result, the number of girls who have been exposed and subjected to circumcision and female genital mutilation have risen quite dramatically. And we'll talk more about that later. But it is in this very challenging context that I think, as John has said, that our partnership model has proved to be really so very, very effective. Our localized, partner-led way of working meant that we were able to continue our work, to continue our programs, and to quickly respond, adjust, pivot, the word of the year, I think, to the immediate needs of communities that we are targeting. Tonight, of course, we have to thank our partners, to everyone in the Girl Child Network. Paris is here with us, Mercy, and many of the gang are in the audience, and we're delighted to have you with us tonight. And of course, the Diocese of Lodwar, our friends in Uganda from Voluntary Action for Development and Caritas Mado. Without them, this year would have been, I think, very catastrophic. I think that, you know, traditionally in humanitarian response, we have seen teams of international development workers and humanitarians running to the front line to provide assistance. This wasn't possible in this extraordinary year, and it has given an opportunity for our colleagues, our partners, our staff on the front line to really step up and show us what they could do, and they really did do a stunning job. I'm going to share my screen with you now, I hope. Yes, yes I am. And just, I wanted to share with you just some, I suppose, some highlights, not because they're positive necessarily, but the impact of COVID on the countries, the communities, and the countries where we work, and the global south in general, and they are pretty stark. Oh. And now, oops. So, schools were closed on the 18th of March in both Kenya and Uganda. And as a result, over 1.7 million children in Kenya and 3.5 million children in Uganda missed out on meals. Meals that were not, you know, for many would have been their only meal in the day. We know that globally 1 in 4 girls are married off as children. The concern now is that as a result of COVID-19 and school closures, that many children will not return to school, with the results in 13 million girls facing marriage in the next decade. UNICEF are predicting that an additional 2 million girls will be forced to be circumcised or female genital mutilation in the next decade also. But I think an immediate and very stark reality that we are trying to deal with now on a daily basis is that in Kenya, in this year alone, since the closure of schools as a result of COVID, we've seen a 40% increase in teenage pregnancies. So that silent GBV certainly is becoming a very visible reality for many of the children that we work with. Just want to tell you a little bit about what we did in the course of COVID, during the course of the pandemic. Well, what we did in partnership with our colleagues, the Girl Child Network. We talked about food earlier and the importance of school feeding for many of the communities we work with. So we transferred school feeding to the household level. This is a photograph taken in Turkana in April or May, I think, Paris, a socially distant food distribution. We distributed sanitary towels, been absolutely critical for young girls whose families either can't afford to buy the products or don't understand their necessity. So to allow the girls to go home and be safe and be comfortable and be healthy while out of school was really critical. We've all learned about hand washing, singing happy birthday, you know, what is it, once, twice, 3 times. We work in communities where access to water is a challenge every day and all the time, where many women and girls walk 6, 12, sometimes 18 kilometers a day in search of water. So we installed very basic hand washing facilities across Kajiado, Turkana and Karamoja. in order, as part of the protection against COVID, we distributed PPE to many local health centres across Kenya. But maybe for me, I think the other really important part of what we did is, or how we stayed connected to the communities, is that our community facilitators, people who'd been identified as leaders in the community, who support our existing programs, support the rights of the girl child, support their protection against early marriage and FGM, support their right to meet all of their potential, but who encourage families and communities to support their children in school. These community facilitators took on extra duties. They stayed connected to communities. They supported child protection they supported the children and helped protect them in times of crisis, and many they protected from marriage. And they were also a vital part of the public health distribution and information. Again, many of the communities with whom we work don't have access to television or radio. Many can't read or write. In Turkana alone, less than 17% of the adult population can read or write. So having a trusted member of the community, being able to advise and direct on how to protect yourself from COVID was really critical. And our community facilitators were key actors in this. And so for us, school is more than a place of learning. It's a place that supports children's nutrition, their health, their protection, and their socialization. And the key for us, we think, is to get all children back to school, boys and girls. And that is going to be a challenge in the new year. But our plan is that we will support school leadership and communities to reopen their school in line with our core program. So there will be water in schools, there will be toilets in schools, there will be food in schools, there will be training in schools. But in addition, we want to add care packages so that we can support pregnant teens and young mothers to return to school. We're fearful of their loss of childhood and their loss of future. So one way to encourage their families to allow them to go back to school is to say, we will have someone in the school who will help look after them. We will have food for the pregnant girls. We will have a babysitter when the girls are coming back to school, so they can feed their babies and go to class, and they will be looked after. So our core program, additional care package, and also to support families to improve their livelihoods. For the nomadic pastoralists, the first line of defense, the first saving is to marry off their daughters. When in crisis, you marry off your daughter for a bride price. If we can support these families in better livelihoods, in stronger livelihoods, in alternative livelihoods, we can also protect children in school. So I am going to leave it there for now. I'm going to, I will come back though at the very end. So I'm going to say thank you for listening to me for now. I'm going to hand over to Donal and give the floor to Paris. Thanks very much.
Wow, and God, so much food for thought there as we sit here in our comfortable existence in Ireland. And Paris, over to you now to explain your perspective coming to us live from Kenya.
So thank you, Donald. Thank you for everyone who is listening, and we are sharing the warmth from Nairobi. I'm told Dublin at the moment and the rest of Ireland is quite cold. Concerning the program, most of the information Anna's talked about, I think the model, the way John talked about, is working well. That as much as we're implementing the program here in Nairobi, also Aidlink, our partner in Dublin, is conversant with what is going on. So at the moment, the government is reopening schools in phases. Now we have grade 3, 4, and Form 4 back in school since October. but we still have over 10 million children at home. They've been at home now for almost 9 months. And as we talk about the pandemic, I think the pandemic has given us the timelines on how to describe some of the events. And now we can talk about before COVID, that is the BC. So before COVID, the program had showed tremendous, considerable impact, especially in communities, schools, and the children we work with. There are more children who are accessing education and transiting to higher levels. We also witnessed communities having increased support for their children. We saw families sending more children to school. We saw families also considering sending girls, boys, and children with disabilities back to school. We also witnessed a reduction in negative cultural practices, this being the highest barrier to girls' education. And communities continuing to tackle the barriers and ensuring their children are accessing education. Some of the key challenges, especially during the COVID pandemic, is that the prolonged school closures has seen a spike in gender-based violence. We are hearing communities reporting increased girls undergoing female genital mutilation. We are also hearing families experiencing domestic violence, which also affects the children. We've also had reports from families where children are not accessing education, because when schools abruptly closed in March, we had most of the children that we are supporting, especially in communities which are hard to reach. These are the pastoralist communities in Turkana and Kajiado, who could not access the TV, the radio, and the internet. The most model that was used by the Ministry of Education to try to ensure children are continuing to learn. But because they could not access, we have seen that there is a widened inequalities in terms of the children who are able to access the devices continued with their learning. But the children who could not access the mentioned devices, their learning stopped. So we are seeing girls doing more of household chores. Most of their days are filled with taking care of their siblings, fetching water, and helping their families, and they've almost forgotten everything about education. So as Anne mentioned, that schools remain safe spaces for children, especially in terms of teachers, peers, school management committee, remaining the support structures for the children. But when the schools closed, the support structures could not continue, as the children were forced to remain at home. So we continue to hear stories, especially coming from the families, especially when we're working with the pastoralist communities. As I mentioned about the community facilitators, these are the support structures that we have at the community supporting us to mobilize communities to send their children to school. So one of the facilitators called in the month of July, and he informed us of an incident where he woke up in the morning only to find a queue of over 20 families waiting for support from him, and especially what they were waiting for was food for their children. So the community facilitator had to mobilize his friends, mobilize opinion leaders in the communities, and walk miles to knock doors at the local administration offices, knock doors at the civil society offices, so that they can be able to get the support for these families. And for the girls, one of the girls called us, and when she called, what came out of her mouth, the first words that came out of her I'm worried about my future. When we probed her father, she told us the reason as to why she was worried is her family were planning to marry her off. So Girl Child Network, together with the community facilitators, intervened, and the girl is happily waiting to reopen schools in January. And the voice of that one girl is a voice of millions of girls that are out of school at the moment. We've been asking ourselves a $1 million question, and probably to bring it home, it could be a €1 million question, that how many girls will get the chance to go back to school when the schools reopen in January. Girl Child Network, together with Aidlink, we are ready to double our efforts to make sure every child, girls, boys, children with disabilities will go back to school. And we will continue doing this because, as Anne had mentioned, that during the pandemic, during the closure of schools, we continued keeping the education agenda alive. When the Ministry of Health was building awareness on how to reduce spread of COVID, our biggest agenda was on child protection and ensuring that families and communities continue to talk about education, so that families will be ready to send their children to school when school reopen in January. So as we wait for the schools to reopen, we will continue supporting the families. We will continue ensuring the schools are accessible for both girls, boys, and children with disabilities. We will continue building the resilience of the families and the communities you're working with to make sure that they're able to support their children. We will continue working and talking with the Ministry of Education and all the other partners to ensure that there's enough support for the children as they reopen the schools. I know the pandemic will continue, but we are happy that there is a vaccine that is coming. I know it will take time to reach Africa, particularly Kenya, and particularly the communities you're working in, because these are some of the communities that they are hard to reach in some of the farthest regions from the center of power, that is Nairobi. But we believe that something good will happen, that children will reopen schools in January. But one thing that we know is that not every child will be able to go back in January. Back to you, Donna.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Paris. Technology is amazing how we're all connected as a global community, and to be able to hear directly from Paris. And, you know, when I think of Aidlink and the work that Aidlink does, it's not about, oh, we're better here in Ireland and we're more advanced and we have things figured out. It's just about sharing, and it's about caring about other people. There are rich people in Kenya, there are rich people in Uganda, there are rich people in Ghana, there are rich people all over the world. But for whatever reason, there's people in need. And someone like Paris and Mercy, who's on the line, such inspiring people, the way you devote your lives to the work you do, and you're undaunted by the task ahead of you. And of course, Anne as well, who's given her entire career to this. It's really, really inspiring. And one of the reasons why I love Aidlink so much, and why I've worked with Aidlink for a long time, there's no fuss, there's no fat, there's no faff, there's no extra bits. And this whole bit of connecting directly with organizations like Girl Child Network is what it's all about. In a way, to give you time to process all what you've heard, we're just about to be joined by Mundi. And after Mundi plays, we're going to have some questions. I can see the names of people all over the world, from Tom and Molly and Margaret, all joining in from everywhere, Brenda, Laura. We're going to have a conversation with you all afterwards, but we can use some music now from Mundi almost as a chance to take stock and to think about where we are, what we can do for others, why we want to do things for others. And I don't think any of us are in any doubt that Aidlink is the channel for that. And we have to do very little compared to what Paris and Anne and everyone working with Aidlink does. We have to do very little in comparison. We don't have to put ourselves out of our rhythms much. Mundy, are you there?
I guess so.
Brilliant. Just
Yeah.
before I hand over to you, Mundy, I just want to say, if anyone's got a request for Mundy to play, pop it into the Q&A and we'll get to it. And over to you now, Mundy. We'll check in with you after this song.
This is not a cowboy shirt, by the way. This is my colours I earned in the National Concert Hall at one of the gigs. So I'm going to sing a song called Dark Long Enough, and it's about being optimistic about life and getting out there and doing the things that you always want to do and not putting things on the long finger. Come the young-hearted people and list how I'm feeling. I'm sick from the news, I'm sick from the killing. There's a stretch in the evening, it's the magical stuff. Come into the light, it will be dark long enough. Bourbon biscuit box, yeah, barking barn brack. Winter turf tokens, they're hard on the back. Mountain fleece blowing on the heather like fluff. Make friends with the light, it will be dark long enough. Oh, dark long enough, it's a sentence to love. Dark long enough, it's the lonesome. Dark long enough, it's the only excuse. Dark long enough, it's the only truth. So get on your bike or get on a wave. It's clear aperture, it's savior and knave. Stand on a rock and call for a shove. Baptize yourself, it'll be dark long enough. Oh, dark long enough, it's a sentence to love. Dark long enough, it's a lonesome song. Dark long enough, it's the only excuse. Dark long enough, it's the only truth. Now we're running from the pool, and it's steaming down rain. Togs over the town, tearing down the back lane. Chipping in for 10 major, well, it's looking real tough. Gather round the last match, it will be dark long enough. Oh, dark long enough, it's a sentence to love. Dark long enough, it's a lonesome old song. Dark long enough, it's the only excuse. Dark long enough, it's the only truth. Dark long enough, it's the season for juice. Dark long enough, it's the only truth.
Whoa. Mundy, we've Marion Shaw is saying 2 musical instruments at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
What class of a talent do we have here?
I'm still learning this one.
Now, possibly reminded by your appearance on the Late Late Show last Friday, the very same Marion Shaw has asked, can you sing the song that you are quite known for?
Yes.
The one that has the name of an Irish city in the title.
Oh, yeah.
How you feel about playing that?
80.
Limerick, you're a lady. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do. I call it the G Reg. This song is called Galway Girl. Galway is it's one of the biggest cities in Ireland, and I sang this song by accident. I really liked the original, and it became a very popular song, but by accident, And it's called Galway Girl. And thanks for having me on board. I love to support the cause, and anytime there's an event on, I'd like to be involved, or if I can in any way, and keep fighting the good fight. Sorry, I have to tune this up. Well, I took a stroll down the old long walk on the day I met a little girl and we stopped to talk on a fine soft day. And I asked you friends, oh, what's a fella to do? What if her hair was black and her eyes were blue? And I knew right then that I'd be taking the world. And I saw till prom with a Galway girl. We were halfway there when the rain came down in the day. She asked me up to a flat downtown on a fine soft day. And I asked you friends, oh, what's a fella to do? Well, if her hair was black and her eyes were blue. So I took her hand and I gave her a twirl. And I lost my heart to a Galway girl. My grandma and your grandma was sitting by the fire. My grandma said to your grandma, I'm gonna set your house on fire. Talk about hey now, I go on day. Chakamofi na day, chakamofi na day. My flag boy and your flag boy was sitting by the fire. My flag boy said to your flag boy, I'm gonna set your flag on fire. Talk about hey now, I go on day. So when I woke up, I was all alone in the day. With a broken heart and a ticket home. And I asked you friends, oh, what would you do? Well, if her hair was black and her eyes were blue. You see, I traveled around. I've been all over the world. And boys, well, I've never seen nothing like a Galway girl. Never seen nothing like a Galway girl. Never seen nothing like a Galway girl. Never seen nothing like a Galway girl.
Mundy, thank you. Thank you so much. That Galway Girl, like you've never heard it before. And the more eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that's Mundy wearing a Maasai blanket, which Paris and Mercy would have brought over from Kenya. And you wear it well. You wear it well. Mundy, thank you so much.
Thanks a million. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Thanks a million much. And that goes out as well to Eileen Bohan. Thanks, Mundy, you rocked it, says Eileen. Now we're getting into our Q&A now. Brenda Murphy as well. Thank you, Brenda. Brenda is like a Mundy too. First question from Laura Killeen, and please put your questions in now, guys. Laura Killeen wants to know why FGM rates have risen during lockdown. Do you want to take that on? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think Paris is going to go first.
Okay, Paris.
Thank you. So FGM has been something that is done during the holidays when children are out of school. And it has been done around the month of April, the month of August, and the month of December. Those 3 months being the holidays when children are out of school. So when the pandemic struck around March, forcing all the children to be out of school for more than 9 months, that gave space for the families to actually conduct FGM, and also the restrictions from the government in terms of movement within the communities meant that there was no one who could actually move, especially for the child protection structures at the government level. It meant there was no movement, frequent movement to communities to ensure that children are protected from female genital mutilation. So with that space, it meant families could meet like 10 people, 5 people, and they could conduct the whole ceremony, and it ends without anyone witnessing anything has happened in that village, and without other communities being able to actually get to the structures to report on the cases. And that is, I think that is has been the biggest reason as to why FGM, the spike of FGM is reported in most of the communities.
And I might add, Paris, if I can. I mean, FGM is a traditional practice. It is a rite of passage by the communities who practice it, the Maasai among them. But also, so it's a rite of passage to womanhood, but it's also preparation for marriage. So it is a critical element of preparation for marriage for very traditional communities. And certainly one of the things we've seen as schools closed for so long, that many communities have reverted back to very traditional practices. As Paris has said, you know, so FGM is illegal in Kenya. It is often practiced underground, but you know, in normal times, it can be reported to the board of management in the school or the head teacher or the police. But in times of COVID and restricted movement, and certainly very little movement in and out of very rural and hard to reach places, communities reverting back to traditional practices, preparing their girls for marriage as seen as the only way out of their economic crisis and woes at the time. And so together, yeah, that safety net of the school was gone, the reverting to traditional practices, and no normal structures by which the girls could access support. So that's part of the reason why.
Terrible, terrible. It's still ongoing. A question here from Aisling. A question from Aisling, Fran and Paris. Looking forward to 2021, what are the key priorities, challenges and opportunities for Aidlink and Girl Child Network? Paris, we'll start with you again first. For Girl Child Network, looking forward to 2021, priorities, challenges and opportunities. Are you muted there? You need to unmute, Paris.
So most of the schools are actually reopening on 4th of January. So we are expecting all our children back to school. And the Ministry of Education, together with the Ministry of Health, has given out some protocols for safe reopening of schools. And some of the challenges that Girl Child Network foresee, especially when schools reopen, is that schools might not be ready to have met all the protocols to actually reopen the schools. For example, in communities where we work, which is a pastoral community, it is an arid region. Availability of water remains an issue, and as we all know, one of the ways of reducing spread of COVID is actually improving on hygiene, washing of hands frequently. So we understand that not every school will have a hand washing facility ready. Not every school will have enough supply of water. Not every school will be able to provide even the masks for the children. So even for the 3 classes that reopened since the month of October, the parents have been providing masks for their children, and they are not following the protocols given by the Ministry of Health that you're supposed to frequently change the mask. So some of the children are using one mask until it is torn for it to be replaced. So those are some of the challenges as Culture Network we are seeing, but also we will continue to ensure that we are in dialogue with communities, we are in dialogue with households, because what we've seen when the other 3 classes reopened is that not all children were in school. By the 3rd week, we only had like 40%, 50% of the children. So we had to use our community structures to move within households, within the community, have a dialogue with the households on what are some of the challenges they are facing for them to send their children to school, and also give a supportive hand to these vulnerable households for them to be able to send their children to school. And the other opportunity is the willingness and the support from the Ministry of Education to actually reopen the schools. It has been our cry for the last 9 months. We have had discussions, and our executive director has always been on the front line, trying to encourage and also talk to the Ministry Education officials that we are looking and we understand that schools were not a source of spread of COVID, as in children were not so much affected by COVID. So actually closure of schools had negative impact to the children. So reopening of schools, I think it is the happiest moment for us. We are all looking forward towards. We know our children will go back to school, they'll go back to the structures that they have missed, they'll go back to at least getting the meals, the girls will be able to continue getting the sanitary towel supply. And that is our joy, that is our happiness, that actually children will be able to go back to school. I think my executive director is in the audience. She can give all the support.
Wow. And that issue with the face mask, Paris, is again something we take for granted here, the amount of face masks we go through. And those of us that are parents here know what it was like even dealing with a relatively short shutdown of schools. But for your school still to be shut must be so difficult for people to just get on with their lives, and then for children obviously to be missing that education. And I have the same question for you, so from Aisling, looking forward to 2021. Aidlink's priorities, opportunities, challenges for 2021?
Look, I'm going to echo what Paris has said. I think for us, the number one priority is to get children back to school, to get our programs rolled out and children back to school. And Paris has discussed the challenges there. If we can be part of improving the infrastructure, if we can be in terms of water and sanitation, if we can be part of mobilizing communities who have, been out of the school system now for 9-10 months to go back. So look, our single biggest priority is to get children back to school and to support communities to get children back to school. And together clearly with the Girl Child Network and our other partners. I think the opportunities for us, and we've learned a lot, and I think we need to do it, we will have more reflection to do, is that, we have learned in this year about the strength, and I mean, we knew it all along, but we've seen it in more I don't know, vivid technicolor about the strength and the capacity of our partners on the ground. You know, we could scale up in this fashion and do more, reach out to more communities, work with more communities, build the capacity and resilience of more communities. I think, look, you know, it is incumbent on me. The biggest single challenge facing Aidlink going into 2021 is finance. We know we have the partners on the ground. We know we've got really good programs, effective programs. We know that we can be part of positive change in the lives of children. And the thing that is hindering us doing more is funding and financing. You know, we are supported by the Irish government. Of course, we would like more, but we're supported by the Irish government and many of the people who are on this call, organisations and individuals. But we really are appealing to those that can assist us to do what they can at this time. Because without the finances, you know, we're not in a position to support Paris and Mercy and the team in the Girl Child Network or VAD in Uganda. And I suppose it is that ripple effect. We know what the challenges are. We believe that we have very relevant, appropriate, really cost effective. And I think this is, you know, I mean, this is going to sound very crude, but it is much more cost effective to have Paris on the front line than to have me. It is much more cost effective to be, you know, working with partners and communities on the ground and not, you know, and in terms of managing expense. I think we're a small organization with very strong partners with a capacity to reach out to more. And we're certainly, I think, we deliver a very fine bang for our buck. But if we had more, we don't have the brand. We're not as famous as you know, some of the other organizations. But we are there in solidarity and in companionship and in, you know, and in strategy and in design with the Girl Child Network and others. And if we had more money, we could do more. It's as simple as that.
And it's a long road, but you know, judging by the fact that the participants in this meeting have stayed with us for the meeting, there is a committed core group of Aidlink supporters who agree with what Aidlink does and how Aidlink does what it does. And I think how Aidlink functions is really, really important. And I think everyone here at this meeting feels the same way. And there's a choice to be made there. Just two quick questions before we wrap up. Paris, one of the attendees wants to know, will students be able to catch up on the schoolwork they've missed, do you know, or have they lost a year?
One of the agreements by the education sector stakeholders in reopening of the schools was that none of the students will miss the learning during the academic calendar. Our academic calendar usually runs from January to around October. But when children will reopen schools in January 4, it means they will continue from where they left when the schools were closed. So none of the students will be missing the learning time. So every child will be able to continue from where they left. We understand that children who continue to learn online will be able to quickly catch up in class as compared to children who did not have any access to learning during the school closures. 9 months is quite a long time, but we believe teachers have the capacity to ensure that children will all catch up during the period children will be in school, especially for the 2020 calendar year. Our calendar year has changed, and it will now take the Ministry of Education at least until 2023 for us to go back to our normal school calendar starting from January to December.
And
Thank you, Don.
but of course that those children, they will have lost a year of their lives. Then their education will take a year longer to complete, and children who may be on the cusp of staying in education or not staying in education due to economic pressure from home may not restart. And I can't help thinking of, particularly from my grandmother's generation, 2 generations ago in Ireland, how much of a balancing act that was, whether girls got to continue their education or not. My grandmother got to go to school till she was 16, and that was considered quite old back then, just not so long ago. And we're just about to wrap up. We've 3 minutes left. We told people we'd have them finished at 8:30. Have you any final message before we wrap up for the good people who have stayed with us
Yeah.
throughout this?
Yeah, look, to each and every one of you, thank you so much. Thank you for signing up and joining with us and sticking with us, not just this evening, sticking with us for many years, many of you. And it's you know, we are really, we are most grateful. I think I just want to reiterate that, of course, look, we do need your help. If this work is to continue, we do need your help. And I just wanted to say that, you know, there are a number of different ways to help. I'm going to ask people in a very simple way to like and share us on social media. You know, if we are running events, that you would promote those events, you know, whether they're online or in person. And sometimes just getting the word out there and reaching out beyond our core group is really critical for us. We're also looking for volunteers. We're looking for people who might have skills or time or skills or interest in supporting us and becoming maybe what we're going to call Aidlink champions. And so whether it is that you have, you know, whether it's accountancy or marketing but some skill that you think might be of benefit to us, or simply your, you know, your time and your good humor and your positive energy. And if you are there and you think you would like to help more, please get in touch with me or with John, and we'd really like to talk to you about what that might look like in the future. And then, of course, I have to say that for any of you that are in a position to make a donation, if that is the contribution that you can make and you're in a position to do so now, we would warmly welcome that. But look, from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to be bold and speak on behalf of Mercy Masomi, who is quietly in the audience. She's so not often so quiet, Paris, really, is she? I want to thank you for your support to date. In this extraordinary year, you know, the support of many of you who are here have allowed us to reach out deep into communities that are hard to reach, and provide support, sometimes life-saving support, in really very difficult circumstances. So for all of your support to date, thank you sincerely. For being with us tonight, thank you so very much. And from all of us at Aidlink and our friends and colleagues overseas, we want to wish you all a very safe and healthy and happy Christmas. And let's look optimistically. I think working in this business, like you, Donal, you have to be born optimistic. And, you know, we are hopeful and optimistic for the new year for all of us, both here and overseas. So warmly, thank you very much, everyone.
And there's a closing comment from Mary Scully, who says, thank you tonight for a sober reminder of our privilege, and wishing you all well. And for me, all of this is about Aidlink is the perfect channel through which we can use our privilege for good. And I've been working with Aidlink for 17 years, and I can tell you that Anne is a wonderful taskmaster and a great person to work in. If she wasn't, I wouldn't be here 17 years later. But Aidlink, for those of you watching who do want to help and want to do more at whatever level you can, Aidlink is a great way to leverage the privilege that you feel into trying to put some good into the world. And we are just a minute over time. So without further ado, we'll say goodbye, and you will be sent a recording of this. and there may be some action points sent with that as well. Thank you everyone for joining in. I wish we could see you all, and thank you to the panel. I'm delighted that we got to see, and thank you to Mundi. Thank you all so much. Happy Christmas to you all, and hopefully to see you again online soon and in real life at some stage as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Donald. Thanks, everyone. Good night, Paris.
Bye.
Bye.